Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Okay, this time I'm going to go down the trend or road we have been through from epistemology, that is, to know why you know, how you know, what you know, to what actually is there, what exists, what is the truth. That is the purpose of our searching or seeking. Before I start this part of what in philosophy call ontology, let me say a few words about the comparison or the difference between epistemology and ontology. All right? I assume most of my listeners or audience are amateurs, not professionals, but probably there are a few professionals as well. It doesn't make much difference anyway. What I want to say is this: either you are professional or amateur. You don't take philosophy as your profession. And most Chinese I know, they don't. Actually, they despise it because it doesn't make much sense in their daily life, or it's not useful. Well, that's really the bigotry or wrong idea. But I won't go too much onto that one now. I just want to say, think about it this way. Philosophy is something that is to give you a different value system. You live in this world. You know what you do every day. Probably at this time in the 20th century, you are busy with your livelihood or busy making a fortune. Do something useful, you were told since you were young. Well, think about this way. How long you life versus after your life. Or put it in another way, as the history goes, how far or how long the history or the future is versus what you lived through. You probably will say your life is short. Give you 100 years or 150. Can you go beyond that? Probably human beings won't exceed that for a while. All right? Okay, so it's relatively short. What do you do with the short life you have? Less than 100 years, let's say. Fewer than this 100 years of life you live on Earth. What do you do? Probably you were told you will work, you will labor, you will toil from early morning to late at night till you retire. Then spend another 10 or 20 years traveling the world, spend the money you accumulated, then go into the earth. Die as everybody else. Is that what your life? Probably it is, right? Because you don't know anything else. You never ever heard of the word. What is the meaning, the value, why human life is different from a pig, from an animal? Have you ever thought about that? That's what philosophers are different from the majority of people. They are not in the market. They don't worship market. They want to search the meaning of life. Think about that one. But what is the truth? What is what they are searching for? I believe the answer is simple: to know the truth, to be aware of what you have been through. In my own word, to know this part in the dimension spatial temporal world. Feel weird? Is there another world rather than the spatial temporal one we got from Albert Einstein, right? Before that, I have never heard of it. Probably the same as most philosophers, they never heard of it. They never ever knew that there's another world rather than the spatial temporal one. Okay? So out of the two dimensions, or one dimension, if you wish, what else are there? Well, that's the point. You are often told your life, you are living in this world, when you look at the vast space, the stretches of the universe, the gazillions of stars, you are humbled. You are so little, so insignificant, so minimal. You are just a particle of sand in this universe. So you need to be humble. You need to be modest. You need to put the limits to what you say. Well, in a way, you are correct. Your boss won't like that if you say more than he thinks you should. But in reality, ontologically, it's a different thing. Philosophy teaches you there's another world, and you are more than just you appear to be, what you say. All right? Especially in this philosophy of Instancology. Normally, I hesitate to call it a philosophy because it's, strictly speaking, is not. But since what I'm saying is not popular yet, so I take the word, take its meaning, take the face value to say it's still philosophy. All right, when we come to this part eventually, to instancology, to the ontology of instancology, that is the absolutology. All right, that part will teach you. You have the double absolute, a part of it at least, inside you. You are more than the vast universe, the gazillions of stars, galaxies, black holes, big bangs, if you like. Let's suppose other places has big bangs, has creatures, has life, similar to ours. It's a popular belief. A lot of people think that's a real possibility. But anyway, we'll come to that part. For amateurs, this philosophy of Instancology or Absolutology will teach you what is absolute in you, in yourself. So you are more than a particle in the universe. You are much, much more. Actually, you are limitless in terms of function of your brain. But your body is no different than other animals. No different. Okay? For the basic needs, to eat, to generate offsprings, no difference. So treat yourself, respect the creation of God, if you will, respect the human part. That is the purpose of understanding philosophy and instancology. So for ordinary people, for the masses to understand the ultimate, the real truth of double absolutes, absolutely absolute, is essential for your life. That is the nature of you as a human being, as an individual. All right, we'll come to that part later. But today I'm going to say something about the history in this spatial temporal world. I want to trace the history of human beings or philosophy, how they come to the point, what instancology discovered here. I gave you some foundation. It's not a whimsical thought or spark of thoughts. It suddenly flares up, you got it. No, it's not that easy. Even you have intelligence smarter than Einstein. What's that number? 260 or something? It doesn't matter. As long as you don't inherit from history, from other people's years of work, you don't inherit previous generations' fruits. You started to create. You think your ideas are that important? No, 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 no way. All right? You have to understand. If you don't understand the history of your field, especially in the academics, your ideas most likely 99.99999% is garbage. It's trash. It's what you self-fancy. It's what you believe it is for yourself, nothing else. So, to have any progress, any advance in the academic field, no matter what it is, history, politics, economics, and no need to mention other science fields like physics, chemistry, biology. You have to inherit from previous generations other giants. Like Newton once said, you can only do that if you climb to be on the shoulder of other previous giants. You just can do that little. That is true to every field of economics, especially. All right. So basically, I want to say today is the ontology part. Last time we talked about epistemology. This time we want to talk about ontology. Why ontology is important? Because it's a benchmark of progress, advances of philosophy. Okay, let me write the title down for today, as we did the last time. Then we will go from there. This part, I'm going to divide it into two. First, the history of what we have for the 2,500 years of Western philosophy. The second part, probably pushed to the next time, about instancology. All right. All right, same as before, life under the absolute, subtitle, relative versus absolute. But this part will be next time. Okay, second part. Today I stress mostly on the history of philosophy. What human civilization has achieved over the past 2,500 years, and exclusively in the West, a little bit Middle East involved in this, but not much. Mostly the Western civilization. Okay? But of course, in the 30 minutes, I cannot cover everything. The history of philosophy is a big topic. You can deal with any part in the whole course, the full course of a semester. Here, I try to summarize it in a few minutes only. If you know already, you are well versed in it, congratulations. If you are not, well, just read it yourself if you want to know more. Okay? All right. We know at the start, we normally divide the history, the philosophers, into two parts in the ancient Greek. One is the pre-Socrates, the other is afterwards. All right, in the pre-Socrates time, we first, well, let me retrace back, rewind here a little. For philosophers, ever since they started, they have this idea in their mind. What we are doing, we are seeking a philosopher's stone. It's like a treasure, like a gem. All right, we try to get it, what it is. For the ancient Greeks, they are thinking, what is that thing? Or what is that? Whatever it is, thingy thing, which guides, which rules, which dominates everything we see, including ourselves. What is it? That's the answer. This searching, seeking, since it started 2,500 years ago, it's always been on forever till today. Okay? The first philosopher to answer it, according to Aristotle, is Thales or Phidias, whatever you call it. Or in Chinese, we translate into 泰勒斯. All right? He thinks it's a water. Water is the thing which dominates everything in the world, including ourselves. Water. All right, that's from the Milesian school, if you know more about history. Later on, there's the Iliac school, mostly from other branch of philosophers, which is on the abstract side. For this Milesian school, there's the other philosophers like Anaximander, Anaximene. They believe what air or hot or cold or influx, those kind of things, or earth, those kind of things are the one dominant element. Okay? And similarly, if you know something about Chinese history, and in China we have the several similar elements, the five we call it, okay? Gold, earth, wood, water, five elements too. All right. But notice here, it's concrete physical things, mostly. This is the one branch. Another one is moving things or changing things, like Heraclitus, fire, opposites, dialectics. And then later on, you also have Pythagoras, numbers of the universe. And here I want to particularly stress one philosopher. His name is Parmenides. He believes the world is made of by the language is. He called it being. In other words, if you can say that's being something, that is the foundation of the philosopher's stone of the world. Being, you can say, that is what you want to learn from it. You don't want to go from nothing. So being versus nothing ever started later on, inherited by many philosophers, especially Hegel and Heidegger, and onwards from him. Okay, this is a guy, this is a philosopher who started this whole language searching endeavor for the philosopher's stone. What is that? That's being, according to him. All right, that's great. The language study tradition later landed on the shoulder of Plato's student, Aristotle. All right, that's later afterwards. Okay, another philosopher inherited directly from Parmenides is Plato. Plato is a great philosopher, no doubt. Actually, he is considered number one in the whole Western world. All right, and his student Aristotle, even Aristotle has tons of things, so many wonderful discoveries, but still considered the second to him, to the master. All right, Plato's idea, why is it so great? You may ask. Why Plato is so worshipped or regarded as number one importance in the world, in our civilization. The key is Plato deals with the rational part of seeking the philosopher's stone. He thinks the world is made by the form. He called it form. The form is the essence of everything. Okay? What is the form? He gave examples like your blue jean has the color of blue, right? And the sky has the color of blue. For the sky's blue and your blue jeans blue, these are the instance of a blueness. This blueness is the essence, according to Plato. This blueness can only be displayed or shown by separate individual instances. Examples of blueness. Of course, you can mention many other blue things, right? And according to Plato, they have a common source, that is blueness. This blueness, the abstract idea of blueness, is a dominant philosopher's stone. Of course, his student, his famous student, Aristotle, does not agree with him, with the teacher. Aristotle argued we get the blueness not as the origin, but as a result of we gathering all the blueness, the blue things, then generalize the blueness from it. So this is a vast difference between who is a horse, who is a cart thing. All right? Who produces who? The master, the teacher, and the student come to versus each other, and have different direction of the world. Who is right? Who is wrong? I'll say my opinion. I'll tell you what Instancology thinks or what it is later. All right. Ever since that time, in ancient Greek philosophy, probably the form, the idea of form, or Parmenides' being, that's from the concrete physical things started with talus or phyllis of water till this abstract thinking, abstract entity of being or form, we come a long way already. Okay, of seeking philosopher's stone. In the Middle Ages, we don't have much over that vast stretch of over 1,000 years. Since BC, after till the 11th, 13th century, most famous philosophers we consider is Augustus, Anselm, a few Thomas Aquinas, and these a few. But mostly the philosopher's stone comes now because it's a very heavily religious toned period. Mostly philosophers attribute it to God. God creates everything, right? Especially Aquinas. He has 5 famous proofs why God is everything, right? That's what made him the bishop, the very famous one. Okay, then after the Middle Ages, we come to the modern history of philosophy. And first we start with Descartes. Descartes, of course, is great in the methodology to bring up the science afterwards, but his thinking still God is everything. Finally, still the dominant thinking is still God, like Newton, right? Newton, after his discovery of the gravity, the law of gravity, the universe motion, he finally needs to give one push. From whom? From God. That's his conclusion. Because everything, if it's moving, it keeps moving. If it stops forever. That kind of idea only came from God, according to Isaac Newton. Okay? All right. After this period of French philosopher Descartes, then we have in Europe many other people. The famous one is Great Britain and Germany. For the Great Britain, the British philosophers are the three: Kant, Hume, and Berkeley. But they are on the side of mostly epistemology. All right, so I will ignore them for now. I'll go on to the ontological part of the German philosophers, starting with Kant. For Kant, his idea is the philosopher's stone, the cause of everything, is from the noumena or noumenon, the unreachable, unrecognizable, unknowable entity. He called it noumenal or noumenon. Noumena or noumenon, plural and singular form. Okay, so without this noumena, you don't have all other things. All right, you don't have it. So that's his idea. And other minor philosophers in Germany, like Fichte or Schelling, before Hegel, the big guy, comes out, it is either the nature or I, myself, of Schelling. For Fichte is nature. So they are still on this trend of a search. You can see, search what is the philosopher's stone. That is ontological studies. Now we come to the scene of the biggest, the giant of philosophy, who is called Hegel. All right. Hegel is great in many ways, but particularly I want to mention Hegel is infamously, notoriously difficult to read. Because his ideas are so tremendous, so complex, so out of the ordinary world, but which is true. When I was in university, I read Hegel's translation in Chinese. Well, I don't say it's good translation, but I read it 5 times. But probably because of nothing else to do, or because it's so hard to understand him, just out of curiosity. And eventually I got what he meant. But by the way, when I'm reading other philosophers in my later life, especially after I wrote my book, The Instancology System. Let's say, probably you have read the Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy, right? And there's a part he mentioned about Hegel. From what I read, I felt that he doesn't quite understand Hegel, because Hegel has much more than what he wrote. I don't know if he purposely omitted it or I don't know. But for what I read, I can see he didn't see Hegel's greatness in his book. Although otherwise, he's great. He wrote so many philosophers. He's so well versed in philosophy history, no doubt. But on Hegel's part, I can see it's pretty obvious. And the guy who translated Hegel, who knows German, into Chinese language, by the way, I feel he doesn't understand Hegel at all from what he did with the politics later on. I feel it's pretty obvious. So, okay, what's great? What's so difficult about Hegel? I'll try to give you an idea in short. Hegel is a person. If you ask him a question, he writes 10 pages to answer it. So basically, I won't say he does not like to say it straight or use simple terms. That's his habit or something like that. Okay, the whole idea is this for Hegel. If you read it, you can have this idea on your mind before you start. Hegel's book is to say the world we see, let me use the contemporary word, the Einstein's spatial temporal world, okay? It's a movement. It's a movement from being, from existence ontologically, not in language only, okay? Now we are already far from language. We come to the reality. The existence of being, the forming of something, to move into the spatial temporal world, to form the nature. From that nature, whatever it is, life, physics, biology, events, movements of stars, everything surrounding us. Then it goes back all the way to the brain, to the head. He called it a spirit. He said when that movement started from pure logic into the two-dimensional world, then back to the spirit or to the brain. That's my word, by the way. He called it into the spirit. He calls it a great journey. Then it culminated in the spirit. He said, he thought that's the end of it. Remember this. This is a pretty important understanding for me to develop, to advance, to go from here onward to instancology. Remember this. But his basic idea is this. Logic existed in its pure form, moving from that pure form somewhere. He doesn't say where. He just said it's pure form. It's a pre-existence somewhere into this two-dimensional world, spatial temporal world, forming nature, forming elements, forming everything around you. Then you come back to spirit. Okay? Look, it's a half journey, right? From here to here to here. Half. See? Half a circle. Where's the other half? I'll let you know in Instancology. Okay, that's basically Hegel's idea. A few words about next big guy is philosopher Heidegger. All right, Heidegger has other things. Politically, I don't want to mention. I only want to say why being or existence is so important. Heidegger intended to write 2 books. Being and the Time is actually the first one, the first chapter. He wanted to write it in the second volume from the point of view of it. The reality to talk about the being. But he didn't or couldn't, for whatever reason, he didn't do it. But he knows for being and time is from human's point of view. From you as a human's understanding. Dasein is being there and then at that point of what you think, what humans think, what he thinks of being, of existence. The meaning, okay? So he's sort of going halfway also. He closed the circle in another sense from Parmenides through Hegel. Until him, he stopped at existence from a human point of view, from opinion, if you like. Human's opinion. He didn't write it ontologically. That requires the fact, requires the true exposure to the philosopher's stone, what it is. He didn't accomplish that part. Okay? As the other trend after Heidegger, like the linguistic, the analytical trend to language, like Wittgenstein, Rondi of American philosophers, the analytical part, trying to get language clear, get metaphysics clear. That's good, but that's a tool. That's sort of like an epistemology part. That's not big advance. Any advance must be ontologically, all right? Must be the truth advance. Otherwise, if you just do the patching work, you are just explaining, you are just trying to modify it, that's not true advance. This is why Stephen Hawking says philosophy has stopped, dead, because it doesn't advance anymore. No more philosophers ever since Heidegger. No big thinkers comes out. Well, I want to say, hold on, don't judge it too soon till you hear everything. Okay? I let it you to judge if instancology is the inheritance of the previous this trend of ontological philosopher's stone seeking and the end of it. I'll let you judge. I won't say it's correct or not because it's subjective, it's opinion. I want to do it ontologically. Let the facts, let the truth shine by itself. That's my purpose. All right? Today I'll stop here. Next time I'll start to show you what instancology is like in simple words. Thank you.